I'll call this meeting to order, sorry. Uh, roll call, Robert. Merle.
Here.
Glenn.
Here.
Kelsey. She's gonna be 5 minutes late. Jenny. Heidi.
Here.
Crystal, here. If you'll join me in the flag salute. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Moving on, we do have a consent agenda item and I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Then we have work session. I will turn it over to superintendent.
All right, so Greg, if we could pull, yep, right there is a presentation. That was sent to you, and so this is just to kind of put a little wrap up on this year. And a little bit of heads up of what's coming to you next year, at least in terms of, in my head, where I see some of our sessions together going from July through October. So on the first slide, go ahead, Greg, is there we go. So as you know, we made a lot of accomplishments in improving our evaluation systems this last year, where all employee groups have new evaluation processes in place. And so, and one of the things that why that's really important is you have to apply your evaluation systems really consistently if you're going to build trust. And in order, if you do have any performance issues, one of the first things that you'll get questioned on is how consistently are you applying your evaluation systems? And so we were able to make some significant improvements in our evaluation systems across all groups. I also think that one of the things that evaluation is important is because all human beings want to know where they stand within an organization, like how am I doing? So I think it's really important that at the end of the year or on an annual basis, that you share with people, this is how I see you doing. So I think it's a really important thing that you apply consistently, because I do believe that humans want to know where they stand. And also rubrics were developed with the idea that everyone wants to do their best. Some of the language within the rubrics that were pre-existing, I would say, weren't written that way. They weren't written necessarily if someone was underperforming. They were written almost derogatorily. And I don't think that that is a good way of helping people perform better. And so we developed rubrics with the idea that if you are underperforming, it's stating where you're at on a particular area, but it isn't trying to make you sound like you're doing it on purpose or to try to make you feel less than. It's just where you're at in a particular area. So trying to come up with more, I think just better language for how we describe how people are doing. So it's more about how people are doing versus maybe measuring their intent in a certain area. So those were some things that we accomplished this year. So as we move into next year, and when I say next year's focus is really under this idea of evaluation, because we also want to make sure that our focus is on feedback. Now that we have this really solid foundation and evaluation set, then the conversation shifts to feedback. And I pulled this quote from Harvard that says, evaluation is a judgment often compared to others, which does not inherently improve performance. Feedback is information delivered with the sole aim of improving performance, irrespective of the current level of performance. So basically what this is that wherever you're at, you can always get better. That feedback helps you get better. Even if you are a great employee, you can always get better. And so I think one of the things that by establishing new evaluation frameworks is the previous forms were so inconsistently applied, or maybe weren't, some of the language wasn't positive, that people were getting hung up on processes, jumping through hoops, and as a result of that, they were not able to hear the feedback that people were trying to give them. So really, we've tried to clear all that out so that the focus next year, as principals are in classrooms, is that teachers can hear the feedback that they're given about what principals are seeing in the classroom, and less about the end of the year evaluation. So observation and feedback and evaluation go together. But really, that evaluation piece is at the end, after a collection of feedback has been gathered and provided to the person. So when we make evaluation processes all about evaluation, there's oftentimes a disconnect between how someone perceives themselves and how they actually did. And so we really want to shift the conversation to be about feedback so that everybody improves. Because what oftentimes happens when the process is really cumbersome and the language, like I was saying before, makes you feel bad if you're not performing well, people will put a lot of, and I've seen this, they'll do a self-evaluation and they tie their identity so much into that evaluation, they will put themselves on the far end of being excellent. And they'll put themselves excellent across the board. Which I understand, but how do we have growth in that if we don't perceive ourselves as having areas to improve? And I think that when your systems are really cumbersome and they're written in not a great way, people will naturally gravitate towards, I'm just awesome at everything, and not focusing on how do I get better. So, and so really trying to focus this on making sure we're giving feedback to help people improve. The other thing in that last bullet's really important to me is feedback is a two-way street. Feedback on the observed performance is one way, and the other direction is, was that feedback helpful for the person? So if I'm a principal and I give somebody feedback on something I saw, I should ask them, was that helpful? Because if it wasn't, that's feedback for the principal that I need to be a more effective communicator. So that was something that I did as a principal, is that I would give a little survey on how helpful was the feedback that I gave you. Because if I'm trying to communicate something that I see that you need to try to do better at, but the words I'm using, whatever I'm trying to say, is not connecting with you, then that's on me as the evaluator to be a more effective communicator. So that's another reason this year we'll have a focus on feedback. So there's a couple of things for you. Now let's shift into preview of board meetings for the next few months. So
a question on the
Yes,
evaluation.
yes.
Are we having a hard break between the old system and the new system, or are you sort of trying to weave those two together?
So on the teacher side, it's a hard break.
Okay.
We are moving into a whole new system
Okay.
of how we evaluate, and a whole new tool. With the classified folks, we introduced something this last fall that was a new rubric and a new process. We actually had them do a self-evaluation in December, followed up with kind of a preliminary evaluation so the classified essentially got evaluated twice this year. In part because I also felt like giving them a new rubric in the middle of the year, we said, let's do a practice run. So because otherwise evaluation, you just pick up off the shelf at the end of the year and you go, what am I measured against again? And so trying to keep it out in front of them more often. So we did it twice with classified this year. So it was a whole new introduction. Well, the one thing that'll change for classified this year, because we won't do it twice unless they're a new employee, is classified will start the year with a goal setting form, and they will write goals that they'll then strive for during the year. And one really cool thing that happened during classified bargaining is that they wrote into the language that during the annual goal setting process, a review of the job description would happen. Which I thought was really, you know, at first I was like, whoa, what's this? And then, but what really was why I think it's a good thing is because they were tying something in to something we introduced. We're gonna introduce this goal setting process. And so then they're building upon it. They said, okay, when we really would like our job descriptions reviewed annually with us and versus creating another administrative task, they tied it right into something that's supposed to happen anyway. And so I really saw that as a positive coming from that group to say, hey, we really want to see this thing. Hey, Dan, you know, the district brought this idea to us. Let's tie that together. So that's one thing that's going to be different. So. And the administrative one, we just kind of, the administrative process is not altogether different. It's just, we came up with a different rubric this last year. All right, so next month, when we have our board meeting, I want to have a discussion with the board about enrollment and transfer process. I'm going to bring you some data over the last 3 years of how many students we are coming into the district and how many are leaving and the reasons why, and a little bit about their grade levels and all of those things. And then I want some feedback from the board on the direction you would have us go in terms of having a better defined process for transfers leaving the district, a better defined process and criteria. And I've had some conversations with some other school districts. I have some ideas, but I want to make sure I do a temperature check of the board as far as where the board's at in terms of before I invest a lot of time into developing a process, is just having a conversation, looking at the data, bringing some ideas, and then getting where the board's at in terms of next steps on how we evaluate and process transfer requests. So,
Do people have to give a reason why they want to leave?
yes. Yeah. And it's in statute as far as the criteria is, the criteria by which, you know, whether a hardship exists that would allow, that would maybe require the district, there are hardship provisions that would potentially require the district to allow students to go to be released from the district. But I'll just speak plainly. I think a lot of districts historically have been pretty loose for a long time with transfers. And I think that a lot of districts, ourselves included, are looking at the resources leaving us with students and going, is it time that we tighten down on the allowances to leave? And I think having a conversation with the board and establishing a better defined criteria would be good, especially so as next school year rolls through and we go through, and Diane can talk about the times when we get a lot of these requests, we can preemptively talk to families about the likelihood of something being approved or not. And if we had a better defined process to say, this is the process we follow in determining this, then, you know, give a better indicator to families as to whether something is going to be approved or not. I know on this agenda, it talks about that I was gonna give the names of the advisory work group, and I'm not gonna do that on the next agenda, the next item on the board agenda, because I just met with another parent like less than an hour ago, and so I'm wrapping that up, and I really want to make sure those families know that, or those parents and staff know that they're gonna be on the board agenda and whatnot, and I haven't communicated that to them yet, so I'm pushing that down the road, but we will have that in July, but
Okay.
just so you know, that next item, I'm not going to be able to visit tonight. And then also in July, I'd like to review the board superintendent working agreements, see if we want to make any revisions, discuss how those worked for us this last year. And that kind of takes us into the August 11th, and obviously we'll have some business reports, that'll be Kim Dowd's first meeting with us. So I'm just kind of giving you a general overview of kind of what's in my head of what you can expect.
We're planning on the reorg meeting at that July.
Yes,
Can I ask what that is? Doesn't matter though.
When we
It's,
elect leadership.
Oh, reorg, oh,
Yeah.
I thought you meant that. Reorganizing.
No,
the
sorry.
admin or something.
no,
And I'm assuming swearing in.
Yeah,
yeah, we'll swear in a new board member and the typical things that happen in
Sure.
that meeting.
I think we have some leftover housekeeping other stuff too. We did part of it, but then we have another part.
And then assuming that, there's some direction from the board on the discussion we have around transfer, then I would bring something back to you in August. Again, based on discussion on the board superintendent and working agreement, bring back something for adoption in August. And then I've had multiple opportunities to meet with our new high school principal, Nathan Stanley, and he met with me last week and he had outlined, I believe, about 4 themes that he took. I think he's met with every single staff member this spring. And he had like about 4 different themes kind of put together, and he was talking about how he was gonna be presenting to staff when they return in August, and I just threw this idea out there. It's just, I go, do you think you'd want to present this to the board? I think they'd be really curious as to hear, what you're going to be doing, and he thought, and I said, you could use it as a practice run for your staff, a couple of weeks later, and he thought that was a great idea, and so he says, yeah, I could do a strengths and opportunities report. So that's what he called it, so that's what I wrote down. So Nathan Stanley will be here
Nice.
on that and give a strengths and opportunities report.
Good.
All right, so moving into September. Now, this kind of mirrors what we did this last year in that the 15th is technically the 3rd Monday of the month, and the 29th is the 5th Monday of the month. So we'll go on the 3rd and the 5th Mondays of that month. Give us a good couple of weeks to get the school year started before we have our first meeting. So I just got some things there. School kickoff report. We'll start revisiting Youth Truth because that will be another push for next year to see how the feedback from our stakeholders is on that. We'll talk a little bit about school improvement plans. Remember, this year we talked about theories of action being narrowed down. This year, we're gonna be talking about what's the evidence that things are working. And so that's gonna be kind of a theme in this year's school improvement plans. And then I thought we might have each principal we'd have all 4 principals there at that meeting, just give a brief report on how's the school year often rolling after 2 weeks. Things like that, would be a brief thing. And then in talking with board leadership, thinking about maybe not having kind of a standalone board retreat, but just making that work session on the 29th, the board retreat. So, and really probably the only thing different is we might have dinner together. So really it's a work session with dinner. But I think this would be a great time to start talking with the board about strategic plan development. And hopefully by then we can start having some timelines around or outline, but really trying to get your feedback as to who should be at the table, how do we want to gather that feedback and building that strategic plan. So that would happen at that. And then I also thought it would be a good opportunity for Des to share what's happening at the North Marion Teacher Summit, which is always that statewide in-service day in October. And that takes us to the October board meetings. So one thing that I thought that we could do is connecting evaluation to the March contract renewals. So you do this really important thing every March where you renew contracts. And I think that there's a really strong connection between, I see that March action you do is really a validation of the evaluation process. And so I really want to kind of draw some connections between what we do evaluation and how that connects to your work or what you do in March. Because I think sometimes that process becomes it feels a little bit rubber stampish that it's on the consent agenda, but it's a pretty significant thing that you're doing. And what are the ramifications of those decisions? And so I think that I'd like to give an overview of what all, how that evaluation process connects. And then what does your action do in terms of what happens when someone goes from probationary status to contract status? That's a big decision. That's a big commitment the district's making. And what happens every year when you renew a contract for a contracted teacher?
Yeah, okay, so it's not your evaluation, you're talking about,
Yes,
all staff.
all staff. Yeah. And what does it mean when you renew all those contracts? Because you're renewing, about 100 contracts. What the significance of what that is. So, and what happens when, what are the steps if we were to choose not to renew a contract? What happens then? I think having those conversations in October make conversations a whole lot easier, or at least understood. Should those conversations be necessary in March? Let's have the conversations when emotions are not high. So.
I think that would be great, I wish I was gonna be around for that. That's
And so, and I have the high school principal report here because what I plan to do is. So we'll have 2 meetings in October, probably just 1 in November, probably just 1 in December. And each principal will give a report. So you see a high school principal report October 13th, middle school on the 27th, and then we'll have intermediate and primary, and you'll each have a full principal report before winter break. I'll review superintendent and board goals at that meeting. At the work session in October, we'll have a strategic plan update, that middle school report. And then one thing I've had a conversation with board leadership about is more frequent evaluations for me, or conversations leading up to evaluation. And it really goes back to that theme of feedback being more frequent and giving me feedback. And I just think everybody does better with more frequent feedback. And so it's something that I'd like to see. I'm thinking maybe 1 in October, maybe 1 in January or early February before my final evaluation around March. So that there's just opportunities. I'd rather have those conversations happening, a couple times a year versus waiting until March. It's just a lot easier to have conversations if there are issues versus, and if they're planned versus then you put them on the calendar and then everybody goes, okay, what's going on? I just rather have that built in so that those conversations can happen. So I'm just putting that on your radar that I'd like to have an executive session to be discussing how things are going in preparation for that final evaluation. I think we did it in March this last year. So there's your preview. And I told Greg that I'd be done in about 30 minutes. Of course, I took most of the time already there, so.
What was your question? I was gonna ask if we can do the school tours again.
Yes, I've heard that brought up before, and so we'd like to, so school tours. Yeah.
I was thinking, should I say that now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to get you all in classrooms and doing tours, and so we will make that a big priority for next year. And that's one thing we had a principals meeting for next year's principals. Nathan was here today. And we're building into our schedule that when Des and I meet with them, have one-on-one meetings, and so we've expanded that time a little bit. That we would spend, I'd be in every school for a minimum of 45 minutes going through classrooms twice a month, which would be way more than I was in classrooms. I was in schools a lot, but I wasn't in classrooms enough. So building it into our schedule that every time that we meet with a principal, they're taking us through a tour of classrooms. So I can let you know those would be times for walkthroughs, but we can also build it into what works for you all. So, yes.
I like tours.
Yeah.
Do you like tours?
Yeah.
We like the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, we're on the school board, we like the kids.
All right. So I already
Number two, you're not doing, we're postponing that, so OSBA conferences, we're just gonna have a brief conversation. Who wants to go to what conference? And I'm thinking like. Two-ish board members at each conference.
So not everybody can go to a conference?
Well, I mean, we can, but we are also making some financial sacrifices. I mean, myself as a leader, if I'm asking people to make financial changes, I usually like to lead by example. But if everybody wants to go, they can go. I would just, think about, is it doable to have two or three people go and bring back information at each conference? I mean, if everybody wants to go to one, I'm fine with that, but I mean, just me personally. That's just my,
I think if we agree to go, we need to go and be there at all the sessions. Not pay that fee and then just be there for 2 or 3 and not be there the rest of the time. Try to make it worthwhile. I've gone. Last year I went to both, the year before I went to just one, plus pre-conference. I thought I was leaning toward going, but I'm kind of unleaning toward going, but if I go, I'll pay my own way and go. So. I know.
I'm gonna put in my 2 cents as my last 2 cents here. I think that we put in a lot of time, we volunteer a lot, we put in a lot of time as board members. And I think in the overall scheme of things, I don't think the cost is so prohibitive, and I think it's really important that we get training. And that is where you get training, and that's where you find out what other schools, really, that's the only, one of the few opportunities we have to talk to other school districts to find out what's going on, what's happening in education, what's happening here, how can we be better, I just think, and I think it's a really good bonding experience when the board members go, because we can, talk about like ideas and things, not, have a not quorum red stuff, but I mean, like, I just think it's really valuable, and I just hate to see, limiting that, and I think in the overall scheme of things, I don't think the cost is really a big thing. We're not paid staff. We're volunteers, so we put in a lot.
well, I mean, people are overwhelmingly interested in attending all days, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that. But I would echo, kind of what Merle says about if we commit, we should go. But I mean, the scheduling is challenging.
Yeah, I would not go to the pre-conference again. I would just to Saturday, Sunday morning.
Well, maybe Diane could, check in to see, or, we could get cause if there was a majority going or all of the board going, I would go with you, cause I've seen the team building and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
positives that could happen there.
Yeah, Bill did go with us. That first year I was there, he was there most of the time. I don't know if he was there all the time. That's a lot of irons in the fire too.
Honestly, the summer conference is good for new members. That's kind of what it's for. It's really for, learning about boardsmanship and that kind of stuff. The fall conference is probably the more valuable one in my opinion. They're both good.
I haven't gone to the fall, I've only gone to summer,
So,
fall always.
maybe we should encourage Blake to go and one other of you who would like to go at least.
Well, is there more than one of us who wants to go? Like if we all pick one Saturday to go? Or one Sunday?
But then you have to pay per person.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it can be. I can see both sides of it.
If I went, I would probably go to the November one, because I think Matt's gonna be in town in August.
Okay,
That's been my time.
what about you?
I would be summer this year. I've always wanted to go to the November one. It just does not work out with
Oh, you've
business.
never been in the November one?
No, mine is sketchy.
I'm
I've
the
been
ones that
there
live in November.
to like one session, I think, when first student took us out for dinner and
Yeah,
But I've like to attend it all. I've just never had the time to be able to get away.
yeah, the November
We
one is
might
the
go
big
in
one.
November.
No,
Well,
he would be
I
interested
would,
in
I would
August.
go summer.
Yeah, summer would be
Yeah.
easier than.
And honestly, I think I've learned just as much not in the sessions as
Yeah.
I did in the sessions.
Mm,
It's a great way to network. I mean, I've made contacts with people there that I still rely on for information in this, in this role.
Mhm.
So it's a great way to network and to glean what other people are doing.
okay, so you're a summer. You wanna commit?
Yeah, I think
Yeah?
I've already
Okay.
blocked the time out.
So, Board Chair,
Yeah,
another idea is the Friday's like a totally separate conference fee.
mm-hmm,
So someone could go on the Friday that couldn't go on the Saturday,
okay,
so. But the
Yeah.
summer board conference is not only good just for new board members, it's great for just. An overview of boardsmanship and different strategies and just good reminders, and especially like if you're board chair.
is this the one that we can get our mandatory training that's required?
No, they don't have mandatory training available at the conferences.
It's that
Those are-
public meeting OAR one that I was looking for.
I
They said they
thought
were gonna
they-
have
I
it.
got that last year. I
Unless
went
they
I went
have
to the
a
meeting and they,
session, I haven't seen it.
Mm, okay,
at last summer board meeting, I went to that training. and
mandatory
they-
one.
And they said that would fill my need, for that.
okay,
I can
so maybe,
check into
will you
it.
double check? So you're a yes for summer,
I would, yes, for Saturday, Sunday.
Saturday,
I don't
Sunday,
think I want to
okay.
get to pre-conference. Honestly, I haven't looked at the.
You wanna check with everybody? Do you wanna commit or do you wanna wait, but you're leaning November?
Yeah, I'm a no for August, but. I think November should work.
Well, that's the way they have the fees broke out. If you go to the conference proper, Saturday, Sunday till noon,
Mhm,
that's $400. Or
okay,
if you take in the pre-conference, it's an additional $315.
That's what I was saying,
so,
but a different person could go to the pre-conference.
Yeah, you could register only for the pre-conference, I guess. New people could register for that.
so Merle, which one are you leaning on?
If I went, I would go to the Saturday, Sunday till noon
In August or November?
in August.
Okay, I'm gonna mark you down for that.
But
Are you fine with that? Diane, take care of it?
I guess,
Okay. We have enough money.
Actually,
but I
since
still say,
since we aren't gonna meet again until right before this.
Yeah.
Somebody reaching out to Blake.
Yeah.
I think I did, I think I already did, I think he couldn't, but I'll confirm, but I'd sent it to him.
Okay,
And I think he told me he could not.
yeah, and that's entirely.
And I'll touch base with him, see if maybe he could also, if he can't do it, maybe one of us can go with him in November. And I'll touch base with Jenny too, and Robert. But, okay, so we have summer, so you two are committed. Maybe November. I'll check my work schedule and event calendar. And then we'll touch base with the other two and see who's committing to what. Are we good?
you
So I
might
will
go
register
November.
you both.
Yeah.
Crystal
Registration
and
open.
November. Excuse me.
Yeah,
I will register you now. Okay,
I guess.
do you wanna check with Gracie first?
Well, I tried to, but she's the kind that never uses two words if one will do it. I didn't get a definitive before I left,
So do you wanna wait and talk to Gracie and touch base with Diane?
so I can confirm that. I
How
hope
about you let
that's
me know
not
on
on the
Thursday?
recording.
I don't wanna get you in the doghouse in public.
The truth
Okay.
is, the November conference is twice as big. There's
Yeah,
a lot more classes, there's a lot more variety, it's.
I thought too, that was the first time last year that I had been to that one and it was more substantial, I think, but you can't. Yeah.
I've tried to get there before.
I know, I have to, it just never
Yeah.
I go to that
November's
one,
hard.
What?
I go to the Portland one.
Good to know, Diane. You might be bringing us some.
But you go to the secretary part, you don't go to the.
Well, they've kind of blended it all
Yeah,
together now.
There's some stuff there for us. All right, I feel like we're done. moving on, safety and security.
All right, gentlemen.
And so I'll just preface this, that they'll be sharing some information, and then we will adjourn, and I'll read in the executive session information, and then we'll have additional information, so we'll hold all the questions.
Very good. Well, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present on safety and security and our wonderful partnership with Hubbard Island Police. We'll go to the next slide if you would, and actually make it easy for you. You can just bring them all in if you want, and then we can. So first off, I wanted to share a few things, you know, how our year went, because obviously we're in the just finishing up pretty much our first year with the relationship with Hubbard Donald. And I wanted to, you know, here in public, thank Chief Greasy and his department and everybody that works with the department for their wonderful partnership. That's first-class communication. I'm kind of going off the bullets here. Our partnership, I can't say enough. Words would not explain how much we appreciate what they do for us. The relationships they have with students and staff, the community, how Chief Greasy is with returning phone calls, text messages, emails. It's always, I can always count on Chief Greasy for that communication. And how they reach out to our community, you know, our entire school community. The focus, you know, service is a word you don't use lightly, and the Hubbard Donald Police Department, that should be one of their monikers of services, what they do. They're there for the community. I think you've all seen how Chief Greasy operates in the community. We just really appreciate that. I also wanted to touch on response time. You know, that was one of the things that was a concern of mine in my first 6 months on the job before this agreement, was just that response time with law enforcement, and that is not a concern. And I want to give one example. I didn't tell Chief Greasy I was going to share this example, but I was on the phone with him one day in my office, and there was a call. I didn't know this, but there was a call that came across the radio about needing backup in the high school parking lot from another police agency. So obviously that got his attention, got my attention, and I didn't know anything about it. It was kind of an interesting call. Everything was good, everything was safe. But before the time I took the call, I was on the phone with him. By the time I stepped out of my office and walked across the parking lot to get to where the situation was, Chief Greasy was pulling up, and he was in Hubbard. So that gives you an idea of the response time and how much focus there is on keeping our students and staff safe in the district. So I wanted to again thank Hubbard Donald Police and the department and all of his officers for everything that they do for us here in North Meridian School District. So if you could go to the next slide, please, and you can bring them all in there too. Just a few things to touch on, you know, with the collaboration, our teamwork, the support that they give, the welfare checks, investigations, their presence. I do want to share an example. This is another perfect example of how this relationship works wonderfully. We had a concern of a student here recently, actually, and the call went to another agency at first, and about a welfare check at home. And after Chief Greasy heard about that, there was lots of communication, and that evening, Chief Greasy and Sergeant Anderson went to the house to see what was going on. I mean, just that in itself, that's hard for a school district to do. You never know what type of situation you're getting into. But that in itself, and then he communicated back to me that evening, and it lowered all that concern about the family, about the children. It was just something that's just another example of what that relationship and partnership will we do. The other thing that I wanted to share was there's some new officers that have come on, and I don't want to steal any of this because he knows obviously all about that. You want to share a little bit about that in your department?
You bet. So we're excited to announce that we are fully staffed, which is really exciting. And so as part of the hiring process and the training process, if you will, we incorporate that in our field training program to where each of the new officers will come and get a tour of the school with Wes and meet all of the principals and hopefully you as well and stuff like that too. And so it's just been a really great kind of introducing them into this partnership also in the importance of it. So they know firsthand what the expectations are and whatnot as well, so.
The other thing that it's nice to share as well is that there is a bilingual officer now on
Yes, thank
staff.
you. That's right. We were excited about that, yeah. In fact, Roger Montez, and we will plan on incorporating him into some parent nights, at the middle school and things of that nature next year as well, so.
The other thing to just share a little bit about high visibility, I think all of you as board members, I know our staff and our students do that, but the Hubbard Donald Police, when we ask them, and oftentimes when we don't ask them, they're around, but just to give examples, in May and June, we had athletic events, kindergarten roundup, sixth grade open house, senior trip departure, senior last day, our graduation, eighth grade promotion, and our last day of school. There was someone here on site, and I'm gonna share a few pictures here in a minute that we're excited to show. And then lastly, I just wanted to share from my standpoint, this intergovernmental agreement that we have with Hubbard Donald Police. It's a annual renewal, so it renews automatically annually, but both sides do have, the school district as well as Hubbard Donald Police has the opportunity to give a 30-day notice, and then it's a mutual agreement. So I think it's a wonderful written IGA, and I know from my standpoint, I'm very, very thankful for the support and this intergovernmental agreement, and I would, my recommendation would be to continue that. So I wanted to let everybody know that. So Gray, if you would, I just wanted to share a few pictures here. As you say, pictures better than a thousand words. Here is our graduation senior walk. It's a great tradition that North Marion School District has. You can see the Hubbard Donald Police Department is involved in that. They blocked the road for us as the seniors walked across on their walk on that very special day. Next photo, if you would, Greg. Here is our sixth grade orientation. So Sergeant Anderson and Chief Reese were here, and they had a table and had little trinkets and goodies that they gave out, as well as talked with all the parents and students on that particular evening. This is graduation. Love this picture. This is Sergeant Anderson, got out of his patrol car to talk to some people that were coming to graduation, and I'm telling you, the stickers are where it's at. The stickers. It seems like they're always out because they're always handing them out. That's what Sergeant Anderson is doing in that particular picture. Here's just another photo of graduation as well. Great presence there. Great picture of our outgoing and retiring principal with Sergeant Anderson. The one thing I want to say about graduation, it happened last year and it happened again this year. I wish I would write down and count, make little tally marks of how many people at graduation actually come up to the officers and say, thank you for being here. Thank you for, supporting our kids. It happens, not just one time, two times. I mean, it is like a bunch of people that do that as they're coming in and as they're leaving. So we appreciate that. I think the parents and students appreciate that. Especially for those big events. There's a lot, as you know, there's a lot of people that come to those events. So when you bring a lot of people, there can be issues that do happen. Here's our eighth grade graduation. Has some pictures here. Officer Montez there on the right and on the left, and Sergeant Anderson. The other thing that's loved at eighth grade graduation, how many kids and how many parents came up to them wanting pictures. These are just a couple that I was able to photobomb in, or not photobomb, but take pictures as well as they were with the families.
Oh.
Yeah, had to put this picture in. It's on the wall with a lot of fun.
I was like, are those real donuts? When you sent me the picture, he said, yeah. I was like, I should have worked that night.
Yeah, that was a fun night. That was a great picture.
So cute.
And then here, I can't really see, but this is middle school field day.
Yeah.
Great. Melted my heart. I mean, kid you not, on field day, these kids were coming up and asking me to sign their books.
Oh.
I mean, seriously, goosebumps and literally made me just wanna cry. It was just, yeah, I was like, wow, you want me to sign this? Wow, and so I got to, that's just the best part of the job right there. Sorry, can I help?
No, thank you.
Yeah.
So again, I just want to thank Coverdell Police, all the officers. I mean, it's, they're here a lot. They're not something, I don't think we ever see that there's concerns or, parents saying, why are they always here? It's just, they're here enough to where it feels comfortable. Coming to ball games, coming to events, and it just feels good that we have that support from a wonderful agency.
Eating lunch here too.
Yeah.
That's right, by the way, I'm gonna do more of that next year. Wes bought me lunch one day, I was like, dang, this is really good. So I'm gonna try to lose some weight this summer, get better shape, and then do it again next year. But no, we really appreciate the opportunity, to be partners with you all and for you guys letting us into, your world and just being able to help partner to keep, you all safe, the children safe, and really just, establish that partnership with the children and families too. So I'm very, very blessed with a great team. Thank you for the kind words, but we couldn't do it without the rest of the team and stuff too. So thank you from, all of us at Hubbard Police Department too, so.
So we'll go ahead and transition. Greg, I think I'm gonna come over there and just.
Well, wait, you didn't hang up yet, did you? No? Okay, I just wanna be able to
Yes,
read that
you
in.
do- Yes, I'll stop.
Thanks. So we're gonna adjourn the work session at, what is it? 6:45, 6:46 PM, and then I'll read this in. The board will meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602K to consider matters relating to school safety or a plan that responds to safety threats made towards the school. Specifically to hear details of school safety that are confidential, such as evacuation, reunification plans, or tactical strategies would be a response to a real safety threat. The board is not deliberating towards any action on the matter. Representatives of the media shall be allowed to attend. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on or record any of these deliberations during the executive session. We will not be returning to open session. And for reference, it's BDC and EBCA. Thank you for attending. Now,
Thanks, Greg.